Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Living Life with James. I am super excited today because I am having the chance to speak to Jacque Rosales, who is a professional and personal results coach. She's also a master executive coach, author, public speaker, has a wealth of information in the realm of technology. This woman has done it all. And I am excited to introduce her. So first of all, welcome, Jacque, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, James. Thanks for having me.
Yes. I cannot wait to get into something that has become so important in our world. And the reason why I asked you to come on is to think about there's so many shifts, and we're going to get into this in a second, talking about AI and what AI is and how it's really come into our world on so many levels. And you were the perfect person, not only working in technology for many years, but having wrote a book. So with that said, let me introduce real quick. Jacque has written a book that is also available on Amazon. Actually, Jacque has written two books, but the one that we're going to be speaking about today is Generative AI for Gen X Parents, which focuses on preparing children for the digital age. Jacque, again, welcome. I would love for you maybe to give us an overview of this book. Tell us a little more about yourself. And let's just kind of talk about this topic of AI.
Thank you. Yes. So thanks, James. Again, so happy to be here and thrilled to be talking about this book. I'm super passionate about this subject. I am not a parent myself, but I am an aunt and a cousin and have many, many friends with children. I am passionate and always have been passionate about being a learner in my role in technology and as a professional coach. The one thing that I know to be true is that change is constant. So I have always described myself as a consummate learner, a serial learner. I am always upskilling myself. And I think the reason behind that is because I'm curious. And as I started to learn more about AI and generative AI, just given my own field of technology, I actually do work for a technology consultant, a large technology systems integrator who our customers are the large Fortune 100 accounts like Amazon and Google and Microsoft. So I stay very close to technology always, not to mention the fact that I've been in technology for the past 30 plus years. And it has framed.
Better to write this.
Absolutely. And if there is one thing in this world that has changed consummately and constantly, it's technology, right? I mean, the multiple revolutions that we've gone through in technology in our time alone, James. Number one, the advance of the internet. I mean, I remember being in a job. I was still going to college at the time. The internet was becoming, one of the things that we used almost daily. And my boss said, that thing, it's a phase, it's a fad, it's going to go away. 20 years later, there is no fad in the internet. And then come, mobile technology and the cell phone has just absolutely changed the way we work in the world, the way we speak in the world, the way we connect in the world. And I really see generative AI as this next technology revolution. It is going to literally change the landscape of all roles, of all people in the world, as the internet, as the phones have in our environment. So I was inspired to sort of share my knowledge about, how I believe things are going to be changing, not just for average people and technology and big corporations that we consult with, but our children and our parents. And these are, I am always thinking about, this child is going to be ruling my world, in 10, 15 years. And even sooner than that, 5, 10 years, these children are going to be ruling our worlds. And what they know compared to what we knew, growing up is
absolutely
unbelievable,
Jacque, I want to jump in real quick because as you're saying that, what's hitting home for me, so you kind of answered my question. I was going to ask you kind of what was that moment? What inspired you? It's coming across beautifully said. I love everything that you're mentioning, but what's coming up for me, as well as so many people that I know, and maybe it's a generation thing, which has happened over generations. We plant our feet. Oh my gosh, this is so scary, or this is not going to stick, or something's going to change. And I firmly believe, like you're saying, it's here to stay. It's going to keep transforming. And we need to get on the bandwagon because we're going to see how it's not only affecting our lives, jobs, careers around us, our children. So we need to, at the very least, learn and grow, as you said earlier, as much as we can.
Right. And that's, that as throughout my career, I've had multiple interviews for multiple positions. And one of the things that I always say is that, I am the differentiator. I am the differentiator. I take myself into a new role. So it isn't that this role is different or this role is better or the grass is greener over here. It's that I have decided to make a change, and I am bringing myself and all of my experience to this new role, and all of the success that I built within myself to this new role. And I think that is why I've been successful. And I really see this generative AI and the way it operates is actually the way we operate. Behind the scenes of generative AI are these neural networks of information, these multiple neural networks of information. We too, as we grow, have multiple neural pathways in our brain that have access to information. And it's our training, it's our experiences that allow us to cultivate what we've learned into our experience and into our subjective opinions about things. And that's exactly how AI works. It's these neural networks of information. We train them to do certain things, and then they create, based on that experience, that it's almost exactly like a person and like a person thinks. So I think the way we train these neural networks in technology, also we need to do the same training for ourselves, which means we need to constantly evolve. We need to learn new things.
Absolutely. Jacque, I want to back up because you're using some terms, and for viewers out there, even for myself, I was talking to you earlier, and we're starting to throw around terms, and we're saying AI, and I'm sure there's a million different apps out there, but one of them we're talking about Chat GPT, and we're saying this, and I had to admit, what am I saying? And what am I talking about? It's a part of our kind of culture. It's on social media, but really, what are these terms? And I want to start with kind of the basic. Clearly, when we're saying AI, people, we're talking about AI and bots. AI is artificial intelligence. Some may know, some may not. This whole concept of Chat GPT, I had to school myself. So it's Chat G, a generative P, pre-trained Chat GPT transformer. So just nice to have some definitions of kind of these terms and lingo that we're throwing out there. And with that said, Jacque, I'm wondering if you can maybe just give a little overview of your book specifically.
Sure. I mean, so I wrote this book primarily for parents. I know I named it, Gen AI for Gen X parents, but it's really for any parent. I have considered, re-releasing it just for parents, but really these Gen X parents, they are at the cusp, right? Everything is changing for them. They kind of have a little bit of the old school and a little bit of the new school. But really, so my book is primarily for parents to understand what generative AI is, how they can potentially leverage it to prepare their kids to become successful in this digital age. I mean, their children are moving into an age that is vastly different than the age that we grew up in.
Absolutely.
Vastly different tools and new things are going to be necessary to know. Old things are going to be unnecessary to know. Ways of thinking, ways of doing things and so I think it's important for parents to know this. And so the book is filled with ideas and concepts that they can leverage at home with their kids to help themselves and their children leverage generative AI and the tools that are associated with generative AI. For instance, Google has Google Socratic, which is a tool that any parent or any child can leverage to take a snapshot of their homework and upload it and get, potential feedback from Google about how to make it better, how to make the languaging better, how to change the structure. And these things were just, I mean, when I remember trying to ask my brothers and sisters about how to do this long division thing that I had to learn, when I was in grammar school. How am I supposed to do this long division thing? Nobody knew. They all wanted to take out their calculator, and
now there's a way to do this.
I didn't know how to do it. I had to go back and reread the book on, long division, and I was
Yeah.
able to figure it out. But long division, that's not necessarily something that we need to learn, today. We have calculators, we have things, but
Yeah.
the concept of leveraging your brain to do things like this are important. Critical thinking is important. So the things that I focus on in the book are really things that parents should focus on to make their children consummate learners, to make them creative, to help them be curious so that they can be successful learners and growers throughout their life, to cultivate the skills that are important for people to deal with a society of change, which is what we are.
A society of change. Jackie, with that said, could you give maybe 1 or 2 tips that, as you're saying this, that come to mind that maybe one of the viewers can pick up? One or two tips that maybe how to stay on top of this, how to maybe something that they would learn from your book to be able to support or teach their children, or something they should be aware of in this generation.
Yeah, I think just knowing, generative AI in and of itself is unique, and the difference between the World Wide Web and going out to Google and asking Google a question and generative AI is that generative AI can actually create original content. So when you go out to a tool like ChatGPT is a tool that allows you to go out and ask it information because it's been trained with all of this information to pull information, not just from Google, not just from all of the multiple search engines, but they have pulled data from Fortune 500, from Fortune 1000, from all of the various government databases. So it pulls information from multiple areas, not just Google, not just the various search engines that are out there, and it delivers original content to you. So that is very vastly different. For instance, if I had to give a parent a tip, I would suggest that they go out, or any individual go out to Google and ask for, I make multiple recommendations in the book about Google Socratic. There's something called Khan Academy. There are multiple tools that I recommend in the book, and I'm trying to think of others that you can go out and create lesson plans for yourselves, lesson plans for your kids. Ask it questions about, even a virtual science lab that you could create. So if kids are interested in certain things, you can actually go and search. I would just search generative AI tool for learning how to create a chemistry lab. That will give
There's a million resources as you're speaking. There's
tools,
so many.
If kids are, if they're really, I have a friend whose granddaughter is so crazy about these whales with the little horn. I think they're called narwhals.
Narwhals.
Like unicorn whales. You could go out and create a learning path that is just all about unicorn whales, and unicorn whales will help you learn about, could help you teach you math. It could teach you learning, but you learn with things that you're interested in. So I think it gives parents the ability to focus content on the things that the kids are interested in so that they can learn more effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely. As you're saying all this, I'm thinking from a mental health standpoint, I know there are so many emotions and feelings and thoughts behind this whole world. As I started off, for me, there's some excitement. I know and hear from some people that there's a level of fear. What would you say to the people that maybe planting their feet and saying, gosh, I don't know about this, or I'm scared of what this means and what technology is? What would you have? What would feedback be for you?
Yeah, and fear is an interesting thing, right? As you know, for me, fear has become a leading indicator for something I need to do and I need to address. And so fear is a good thing, right? Fear helps us understand what it is that we need to be addressing. So when I hear people say, I'm afraid of this, it's your beliefs, it's your upbringing, it's your culture that is saying, this is not good for me.
Yeah.
And I would ask people to say, what else have you been afraid of that has, eventually become just an everyday occurrence in your life? I mean, I was afraid of flying. I was afraid of driving when I learned how to drive. I was afraid of driving right next to trucks when
Yeah,
when I first learned
yes,
how to drive. You know, I
yeah,
was afraid of driving over freeway overpasses, you know, when
yeah.
I first learned how to drive. But those are things that I do every day now, and you just have to practice them, right?
Yes, there's something about learning and growth, right? From at least from a therapy standpoint, anytime I hear someone say I fear, to me that translates to I'm not good enough, and there's more behind that. So I love this
Exactly.
idea of saying, let's get into it. Let's kind of dig our hands and feed into that and look at what's behind it and maybe
Right.
grow from that. So thanks for
Exactly.
beautifully said again. Thank you.
And you know, that's one of the things that when I started to write this book and the previous book, um, really was for me to understand that I in this world of sales, we all put a facade up, right? And so when as I became more successful, and the more successful I became, and I wasn't my real authentic self, the more miserable I became. And I
Mm,
think that is what typically happens with people. We chart a path for ourselves. We put on a facade, to the facade that we believe we need to carry in order to be successful on that path, and it ends up breaking down. And I think for me, when I became more authentic, when I really learned who I was, that opened up everything, and that's how I really began to understand fear is a leading indicator for me to learn something, to move forward.
absolutely.
Um, any trigger, anytime I'm like, ooh, that's not for me, or I don't want to do that, or that's not right, I know, ooh, this is something I need to figure out. This is something I need to
Absolutely.
deal with.
Thanks for
And
saying that,
the
Jackie. That
more I can move past that, and the more I have moved past that in my life, the more successful I've become. And it becomes just
that's
people just, and I'm not out there touting it, right? People just start to realize, hey, wow, how did you do that? And as a coach, you know that it's not about, I'm the best. It's about I am not the best actually, and I'm learning how to become, my highest and best self every single day.
right,
I
right,
love
right. You weave coaching. You're weaving that coaching,
it.
right? A little bit of coaching, a little bit of therapy, psychology of the
Yes,
mind behind
exactly.
really what this is about for us.
It is. It is, and all technology is, about both, right? We have to deal with it culturally, emotionally,
Absolutely.
intellectually, and we actually have to use it in our lives every day.
I just heard you say there's different levels. There's different levels to ways to process this.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about this. I want to get your personal professional opinion. I know that there is a fine line, especially with youth, in the world of social media, being online, AI, and parents, and even, I'm sure children themselves, trying to find that balance of how much of our worlds do we need to put with real life interactions and, consumed with social media and or AI as a part of that. Do you have any tips to just kind of think about how can we embrace technology, but also preserve kind of the real world interactions as we go through all of this?
Yeah,
Anything
I
mind?
think I think that's really important, and really also one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book, and the way I wrote this book wasn't just talking about generative AI and talking about all the tools that were necessary and that could be leveraged successfully to
Mm,
employ generative AI for parents and for kids, but also what are some of the things that we should be doing emotionally, um, and culturally to prepare our kids for constant change and constant success. Um, and that is really, understanding that with generative AI and with the ability to generate original content, it's apparent that this original content that may or may not be true is alive and well all over social media, right?
mm,
We know
yeah,
it from the politics that we deal with every day as
yeah.
adults. Kids are learning it and know it as, as kids. They are bombarded with intelligence and content that is generated from nowhere and nothing, right? It's original content, and it may or may not be true. And so I think early on, parents need to cultivate this notion of understanding how to determine if things are right for them. So
Mm,
understanding. and practicing with kids. Here's what Johnny said in homeschool or in homeroom today, and it hurt your feelings, but really, is it true? Are you really XYZ, or is it really true, little Sally, is it true? Can you discern for yourself that that's not true and it's not really a fact, and you shouldn't internalize it? And so parents really do need to teach their children how to understand if something is real or not for them. And I think that's for me too, an adult. I prided myself on being a chameleon, right? And on understanding, how when I walked into a room, oh, this person's upset, make sure you are this person for that person. Oh,
Yeah.
this person is an extrovert and, wants excitement. Make sure you're this person for that person, forgetting about who I am. And so I think for parents today, they really need to cultivate an environment where kids can learn their own opinion and they can learn the truth for themselves, because they're going to be faced with a world that's creating content that may or may not be true in generative AI, and they
Yeah.
need to discern the truth for themselves.
Jackie, I want to hop in and say what I'm getting from that is almost this idea of maybe also trusting in yourself and not forgetting yourself through this process, because we can become dependent and we can rely on AI and social media and things that we're hearing from social media, from the web. And it's important to kind of take a step back and say, it's okay to question these things. It's okay to, right? These things may not be fact checked. These things may not be 100% truth. And to also just know what you're seeing and reading, opposed to just kind of going along with it. Whether it's an opinion from a TikTok video or something you got from a chat GPT or an app,
Exactly.
you need to also know what's happening within yourself and be prepared for those types of things.
Exactly. That critical thinking. I mean, parents know, right? Kids are born with the ability to question, and they're constantly curious. They're constantly questioning. And I think we tend to want to train them out of that. Be quiet, don't ask too many questions. But really, I think that energy needs to be, especially in today's world, we need to teach that critical thinking, that ability to question, that ability to stay curious about everything, to see things from as if they were new every single time you see them. That's really the joy of children. And they speak the truth, and we tend to want to train them out of that. I was trained out of that. And by my own culture and by, I think, the school system, which I think really is something that I am passionate about changing. We need to teach kids critical thinking. They need to know how to make decisions for themselves based on how they feel, not about how they think their parents are going to feel about it, how they think their peers are going to feel about it. And generative AI really drives that need, and that need for that skill home, right? If we are critical thinking.
This and Jackie, as you're saying that, what I'm thinking, this is a whole episode in itself, but there's a fine line. And going back to these words of balance, right? How to maybe use these tools to our advantage. And as long as we are using our critical thinking skills, these tools can be wonderful, opposed to someone that may feel a little lazy, or someone that may feel like they don't want to do the work, as we're starting to see now with students in school, I'm sure, of all grades and even into college, where they think, oh, this is going to do my work or my homework or my project for me.
Right.
And they lose a little bit of that critical thinking. So again, there's a fine line to say, yes, let's use these tools as they may benefit you and help you think critically, opposed to, let's be careful, people, because back in my day, we've learned about plagiarism, and now people are becoming hip already to the idea of, you're stealing content from this world of AI.
Exactly.
So not
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is really true. One of the reasons why parents need to be aware of these tools is because they also need to monitor their kids' use of them. Everything can be abused, right? Everything needs to be leveraged in moderation. These are tools. They are mechanisms. They aren't meant to be crutches. But we are going to need to learn, with generative AI, getting the most out of it is really about writing the best prompts. There's a role now called a prompt engineer. So writing, a specific sentence or group of sentence or paragraphs in ChatGPT or any tool like ChatGPT to
Yeah.
get the best original content out of it is a skill.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that needs to be developed. There will be a role like this that was, there wasn't an Uber driver, role either.
Right.
Now there's prompt engineering, because we have to write these prompts to get the most out of the technology. That's still people who can write the best prompts, get the best feedback from the generative AI.
Yeah.
So
much to learn, so much to learn. But
yeah,
Jacque, what I'm taking away is you're saying, parents, here's a tip. Parents, you need to have a level of awareness with
yes,
how your kids are going and navigating through this and how they're using it and making sure they're still critically thinking. So there's a level of awareness we need to take away from this.
there definitely is. I mean, of course, communication is key, right? Talking to your kids about leveraging ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT is one of the most well-known. They call it, as you mentioned, it's an LLM, a large language, or it's a language learning model. So there are many language learning models. So, for instance, in my work now, as a consultant for companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft, I used to have to go and study annual reports and 10Ks and okay, what are the key performance indicators of this specific company, and how does this CEO differ from this CEO? And I would have to read 4 or 5 annual reports. Now I can upload those annual reports into a language learning model along with 10 other of their competitors, and now that language learning model is like an expert in all of those companies. And I can ask it questions like, okay, how does Amazon's key performance indicators differ from Microsoft's key performance indicators?
Yeah.
It will give me an answer, which have been more successful in the industry. It will give me an answer. I no longer have to go out and read all these annual reports. I just upload them. I ask my language learning model questions and I get that feedback. Now I should be much better than my competitor, right? Who doesn't have access to these large language learning models. I should know my customers so much better. So it's vastly changing the roles of everybody, in the industry today.
Yes. Again, I guess a matter of perspective, because I can see how this can help people and the advantages and the excitement. I can also see the other side of people having questions and needing to learn more. And as I could talk to you for hours, Jacque, there's so much and it's so rich. I could do a million spin-offs to the episode.
I love this. I love talking about this. So there's no shortage of things to say.
But I can also see, let's keep it real, as you're talking, you have so much information and you are almost this expert in technology because of the wealth of information. That can make some people's heads spin, people that are new to this. So I think, again, what I'm walking away from is just grabbing and trying to grow and have some awareness, have some type of information with how to kind of, if you don't have experiences, how to peak, how to grow. It may be reading your book. It may be downloading some apps. It may be just knowing what's going on with your child, right?
Yes.
How to be able to have these steps. I want to know, in your opinion, let's fast forward 5 years. What would you say would be helpful for parents and or students and children to know as we're growing with this? What do you see happening in 5 years, and how can we possibly take that and move and grow with that, with where you see things going in 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think, what I know is I don't know. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I think, 5 years, I think about, one of the jobs that I had when the internet first became a thing, and my boss saying, that's a fad. It's never going to catch on. There's so much security issues with it that we will solve the hard problems, right? We will solve the hard. But then I also know, email also, really changed the way we started to communicate in life. And that hit me in my first job. And I also know, because I worked for Hewlett Packard, that email was invented like 20 years before it even became a thing. We don't start using technology until there's a need for it, right? We didn't really need email. We had telephones. We weren't really moving at the speed of light at that time. So the ability to send email messages to somebody, people were scratching their heads like, why do I need that? Now we couldn't even imagine, not being able to email somebody, or better yet, instantly message them.
Yes.
So we've grown from email to instant message, right? And who knows what's going to be next? I think that I definitely see wearable technology coming in the future. So I think that, I remember sitting across, as I was at one point, I was selling laptops and servers in my sales career. I was sitting across from an executive saying, hey, I want my salespeople to be walking around with this and a screen. That's it. I don't want them to have to worry about. And guess what? You can walk around with this. You don't even need a screen, because you can use any screen in your area with this, because we have Bluetooth now. So I think that with the inception of new technology comes the inception of also new things and new ways to leverage that technology. So I think the world is going to be vastly different. I just don't know how.
Well, and what I'm hearing you say, we cannot prepare for what's going to happen. We know there's going to be change. There's going to be significant change. Brace yourself. But going back to kind of this level of awareness, and try to school or educate yourself on some of these topics, because it's inevitable, right?
It is inevitable. I think, the one thing that people need to prepare themselves for is change, constant change. Be okay with change. It is the one constant that I have found in the world. It is being effectively able to manage change, I know, has been what has made me successful in my life and in my career. Being resistant to change has always caused issues. So this is a major shift in the way that we are going to be doing business, in the way that we're going to be interacting with one another and connecting on a global scale and on a very intimate micro scale. So it's here, and it's only going to get bigger. So for me, things in my book that I was most excited about writing about too were things about, teach kids how to breathe. That one of the things that I realized in my lifetime as a public speaker, because there's never getting over fear of public speaking, right? You tend to get anxious. People get anxious and they sweat and they get upset, and because they're not leveraging all of the things that the body is giving them to be successful in that moment. You need to be up. You need to be excited. You as a public speaker, you need to connect to your audience, and your body knows this. It's delivering all of the things that you need to be successful.
A moment to breathe. I love that. Whether we're learning about AI or going through this process, right? That's an amazing tip. Jackie, that's an amazing tip. Sounds so basic, but it's important.
Everything starts with breath. And my one of my teachers will be very happy that I say this. Everything does really start with your ability to uptake the tools that life gives you. Breath and breathing allows you to take the anxiety, the excitement, the jitters that the world is giving you, and use them. If you're not breathing, that's when it becomes, I can't, and then the sweat comes, and you get to the point where you can't move. I used to memorize my presentations, and if I forgot one word, I was done. Now it's all about connecting and having the flavor of the message, and being connecting to the audience, and flipping if you need to in the moment, because the audience isn't connecting with what you're saying. It really is. So those were the things, teach your kids how to breathe, teach your kids how to meditate, teach your kids how to sit with their emotions and be okay with their emotions, and because your emotions are telling you something. Your emotions are indicators to, I'm not happy with this. Why aren't you happy with that? Let's talk about it. So these are all opportunities.
Yes, opportunities. So important that you're saying this, Jackie, because to bring this back to this concept of AI and what you've learned over the years in your world in technology, there's something so important to say, breathe, sit with our emotions, process this. At the end of the day, this whole world of AI and bots and apps and chat GPT, these are amazing, and they can be very helpful, and they're tools, but they cannot replace a human's authenticity, a human's emotions, a human's connection. I think that's important to say. Let's not lose ourselves. Let's not lose ourselves in this process, because we still hold so much uniqueness and power and creativity. And again, going back to those words, emotions, authenticity, that we need to, I think, ground ourselves in as we're thinking about this topic.
I agree 100%.
I was going to ask you, tools, tips. I've heard so many things from you. I would love to meet with you again, have another episode, because you are full of so much knowledge that I think viewers want to know more about this. They want to be able to incorporate, not only AI and the books that you've written, but I love the finesse of your coaching, how you are a speaker, how you're an author, and how you kind of just all of these things come together to be able to deliver a message, I think, to these audiences to say there's so much to learn and grow and change to be had here. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Like I said, a consummate learner, and always happy to share my knowledge with others if it can help them be and become their highest and best selves.
Jacque, thank you so much for being a part of this. Again, I would love to be able to chat with you further. And there's so much here. Thank you for the tips. Thank you for telling us about your books. And I'm sure we can find you on Amazon. How else?
Absolutely.
How can someone find you if they want to work with you?
Amazon's the best way. My books are, I think you have to actually search them by name or search my name. Actually, I use J.M. Rosales as my pen name, not the full Jacqueline Marie Rosales, but I also have a website. It's called lifeislistening.com. That's my coaching website because life is constantly listening, to everything we think and say, and it delivers exactly what we expect. So expect great things.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jacque. Great chatting with you, and I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
1 second, Jacque. I'm going to hit on recording now. Hopefully I don't lose you. 1 second. I'm just going to hit on recording.